Thank you, and hello and welcome to Computing at Home with Digital Schoolhouse. My name is Estelle, otherwise known as ComSci Geek. I'm a computing teacher and also develop resources for the programme. We specialise in delivering computing workshops that are accessible, educational and fun. You are watching part 1 of our Part Baked Games workshop. This workshop is completely unplugged, meaning you don't need to use a computer to complete the activities. To all learners watching, remember you can pause the video at any time to take notes, collect your thoughts, or take part in the workshop alongside me. The Digital Schoolhouse team are ready and waiting in the chat should you have any questions throughout, and I'll also be taking 5 minutes to answer your questions at the end of the workshop. Parents and guardians, you might want to watch the next bit as it explains how to access our resources, but after that feel free to join in or sit nearby to supervise if you want to. Let's get started. Okay, first of all, let's have a look at the resources that you're going to need to take part in this workshop. So you're going to need both of the worksheets that go with this particular workshop, which is activity U, which means unplugged 1, and activity U2, which is unplugged 2. If you don't have access to a printer, you can do this just on pen and paper. That's absolutely fine. So either those 2 worksheets or using just a pen and paper is absolutely fine. If you want to know how to access those particular resources, I'm going to very quickly show you where to find them on our website. So bear with me a second, there we go. Okay, so to find them on our website is digitalschoolhouse.org.uk. I'll just say that again, it's digitalschoolhouse.org.uk. And if you either go to the resources section, scroll down and go to the section that's called our workshops, go to workshop resources, and you want to go into the section that's called algorithms and programming. And the workshop that you're looking for, you'll need to scroll down until you find it. You might need to go through a few pages to find the workshop. Let's keep going. There it is, Part Baked Games. If you click on read more, and the resource that you're going to need is the Part Baked Games worksheets, and you're going to need just the 2nd and 3rd pages. They're the 2 pages that you're going to need for this workshop. Alternatively, if you prefer, you can click on our magnifying glass, type in Part Baked, and the link that you're looking for will be the first one that appears in the search results. So there's a couple of ways of accessing the results there. Also, if you want to, the activities that we're doing in this workshop are, I'm going to be demonstrating some of them to you as we go along, but also some of them you can actually join in yourself if you want to. So if you want to join in some of the games and activities that we're doing, first of all, you're going to need a newspaper, magazine or some scrap paper. So just some old worksheets will be fine, or just any paper really. You're going to need a set of keys. You're going to need a bouncy ball. These are all optional, so if you prefer not to do these particular games, it's up to you. The one with the bouncy ball might be one to wait for until you can get in the garden. It's not quite so wet as it is today. You're also going to need 8 random items and a timer. So it's completely up to you what you do with your timer. It could be an egg timer like this one, or if you've got a timer on your watch, you could use your timer on your watch. That's fine as well. You're also going to need chairs, enough for 1 less than the number of people playing your game. And of course you're going to need a pen or pencil and a piece of paper, and you'll need a timer for that activity as well. So they're all the optional items. The only things that you actually need for this workshop are the 2 worksheets that I mentioned at the beginning, or a pen and paper. Okay, let's get started. Today's workshop is Part Baked Games, and as I said earlier, this is part 1. We'll be running part 2 on Friday, and Friday at 11 o'clock live on Twitch. Please do join us if you want to join in for the second part of this workshop. In this workshop, we'll be learning about game mechanics. This is going to be a really introductory workshop to game mechanics, so if it's something that's new to you, this is going to be perfect. If it's something that you're quite aware of, it's a really good way of recapping your understanding of game mechanics. And then part 2 will really go into the nitty gritty and we'll learn how to make a game using some of the mechanics that we've learnt about in part 1. So for those of you who haven't heard of game mechanics before, they are rules that control how a game and its player interact with each other. You could also describe them as algorithms. So algorithms, if you remember from the workshop last week, are sets of instructions that can be followed to carry out something. So in this case, game mechanics are used to control how the game and its player interact with each other. So it controls how you play the game, but also how you win the game or how you lose the game. So one example would be avoiding enemies. So one thing that we can do to think about this is look at some of the different rules that are available to us. So here are 9 different rules that we could consider. Can't touch the floor. So literally your player can't touch the floor. And if they do, they die. Another one might be that you can't do the same thing twice in a row. So it might be that you have particular activities that you can do and you can only do that thing once, and if you do it twice then it either grays it out and it won't let you do it at all, or it might again mean that your player, it's game over, your player dies. Must not be seen, so you have to use some stealth and stay hidden and away from sight. You might be that the objects bounce off the walls in some way. It might be that you can only select connecting items, and it means that things have to be actually touching each other in order for you to be able to access other parts of those objects. It might be that you have a limited inventory, and inventory is the things that you can carry. So you might have a limited amount of space that you allow people to carry things in their inventory. It might be that you can only move forwards. It might mean that you have only 1 life, and once you lose that life, it's game over. Or it might be that you have a limited time. So there are 9 different rules, and we had one on the previous slide as well, which was avoid enemies. So again, it might be that avoid enemies works with one of the other rules, such as 1 life only, and if you get caught by the enemy, then it's game over. So these rules can also be used together. So you wouldn't necessarily have one rule per game. You'd have lots of these rules that are all used together. So these are examples of game mechanics. This isn't all of them, there are lots and lots of others, and they're just 10 different ones that were used in the BAFTA Young Game Designer game idea cards, and we're using them to help us with identifying some of the rules that we might see in a game. So how can we think about these game mechanics? So one of the ways that I like to think about this is to try and compare them to things that I have a good understanding of. And one of the things that I have a good understanding of is playing games, so playing playground games. So we can use the example of It to help us with identifying the game mechanics of the game. So what mechanics do you think might be involved in the game of It? So if you want to, you can pop it in the chat what you think, which game mechanics are involved in a game of It. And I'm going to show you what I think now. So I think that in the game of It, you have to avoid the person who is It. So it means that you're using the avoid enemies rule, the avoid enemies game mechanic. If they catch you, you must stand still as you are out. So that is a really nice example of a playground game that uses the avoid enemies game mechanic. Right, we're going to play some different games now. So I hope that you are ready to play some games along with me. As I said earlier, the optional items were so that you can actually play the games at home. It's completely optional. You don't have to play these games at home. If you prefer to just watch me doing the different activities and think about your answers, that's absolutely fine. But if you want to play the games, that's fine too. You might like to pause the stream as we go along to play the games yourself. We are going to be identifying the different game mechanics that are involved in each of the games that we're playing. So the worksheet that you're going to need is U2, which I'll just quickly show you what it looks like. The worksheet that you're going to need for this activity is this one. Bear with me a second, there we go. It's this one here, which is the one that has all the different games that we're going to play on it, and then it has a space underneath each of the different games where you're going to be writing in the game mechanic that you think was the main mechanic that's been used in that game. So again, some of these games are actually going to use more than one mechanic, and it's completely up to you if you want to identify more than one mechanic that's going on in the game. Don't feel like you have to, it's absolutely up to you. Okay, so hopefully you have your game sheet ready, or as I said earlier, if you prefer, you can obviously use a pen and paper and you can write out the different games that we're playing as we go along on there if you prefer. So if you haven't got a printer, it's absolutely fine to work this on paper instead. Great, right, let's make a start. So our first thing, just to remind you before we move on, is to look at the 9 different rules that we are going to be identifying, the different mechanics. So they were: can't touch the floor, can't do the same thing twice in a row, must not be seen, bounce off walls, can only select connecting items, limited inventory, can only move forwards, 1 life only, and limited time. So they are the 9 rules that I want you to identify in the 9 games that we're playing, okay? So I'm going to play these with you. You are welcome to join in, and some of them you will need to join in with me because that's how the activity is going to work. Some of them you can just watch and see what I'm doing, and as I said earlier, with the optional items, if you want to play the games, you are more than welcome. Feel free to pause the stream or pause the video and have a go at actually playing the games, or maybe you want to save them for later and play them later on. That's absolutely fine. Okay, the first game we're going to play is a game called the newspaper game. So this game is a game where it involves music. So when the music stops, you must be standing on a piece of newspaper or you're out, and you have to take away 1 piece each round. Okay, so I have set this up with some of my Lego men because I thought I needed a way of demonstrating this to you using something that was quite visual. So let me just pop over onto the visualizer. So you'll see here I've got some little Lego newspapers and I have some players playing the game. There's me, there's my little character of me. There we go. I might actually just lay them down so you can see them more clearly on the visualizer. I have a little character of my husband. So for those of you that watched the 3-word stories activity on our follow along activity videos, you might have seen him in the video. So this is his minifig. And because it is Superhero Day, I've also got from The Incredibles, Edna Mould, who, if you remember the film, she is the character who designs all the superhero outfits. So I thought it was a bit appropriate for today. So there's Edna. They all happen to start with E's for some reason. So there's Estelle, Edna, and there's my husband, Ed. Okay, and I've got 2 pieces of newspaper. So if you're playing this at home, you need newspaper or scrap paper, and you need to have enough pieces so you have 1 less piece than the number of people playing. So it's a little bit like other games that you can play from by playing along with some music. So I'm going to start the music so that my characters can start playing the game. And when the music stops, they have to get onto a piece of newspaper. That's the idea of the game. Okay, so let's get started so they can all start moving around. There we go, they're going and dancing. Imagine them all dancing. There we go. Okay. Oh, music stopped. And Ed and Edna have got onto the newspaper, so I'm out. Take away 1 of the pieces. Okay. Oh, and Edna wins our game. Excellent. Okay. There we go. So Edna, there we go. Edna is the winner of the round of the newspaper game. Okay. So just to recap very quickly, the game was that all the players dance to the music. When the music stops, the players have to try and get themselves on top of a piece of newspaper. Anyone that doesn't get to a piece of newspaper when the music stops is out. You take away a piece of newspaper, and then the people that are left playing carry on playing. And again, when the music stops, they have to get onto the newspaper, and whoever doesn't get onto it is out. And eventually you'll end up with just 1 player that is the winner of the game. Okay, so that's the newspaper game. So that is our first game. Remember, we're thinking about what game mechanics might be involved in this. We will recap over them again a little bit later if we need to. Okay, so we've played 1 game. Let's go on to the next one. So moving on to the next one, we are going to have a game of musical statues. So this time, when the music stops, you need to strike a pose. And this is a kind of like the house rules for me. So house rules for me are when you play musical statues, if the music stops and you've repeated a pose that you've already done previously, then you're out. Okay, so for example, if you did a pose where you were maybe doing a dab or whatever, and you do the same movement again, then you're going to be out. So we're going to pop the music on again. When the music stops, you need to strike a pose. If you repeat a pose that you've done previously, then you are out. Okay, so let's get ready and start our dance off again. So if you're all dancing, a little bit of dance going on. I know we were dancing last week, but hey, you never have too much dance. Start your pose. Okay, and we're going again. So remember, you can't do the same movement again. Has to be new. Okay, and we're done again. And we're dancing. Hopefully you're doing some dance with me. I'm not the only one dancing on my own. Okay, but I'll be out this time because I've just repeated my previous pose. Oh dear. So there we go. So there is my house rules version of musical statues. Again, remember you're thinking about what game mechanics you might have caught in that particular activity. Okay, so moving on, we are going to play another game. This is called Keeper of the Keys. This is probably one of my favourite games when I was a kid. You have to try and get the keys from the keeper without being seen. So again, I'm going to quickly set up my minifigs to demonstrate this game for you. If you're playing at home, this is the one that you need your set of keys for. Okay, so if you've got your set of keys, you can play this yourself if you want to. Or if you just want to follow along with me and think about the kind of activities that you're seeing. Okay, so I've got a chair. Edna is going to be the keeper of the keys for this activity. And so we're going to pop her on the chair. There she is. Whoops. Okay, just persuade her to stay there. That'll be good. There we go. So Edna's going to be the keeper of the keys. When I looked through my Lego sets, I couldn't actually find a key. So unfortunately, I've gone for some money instead. So she's going to have some money. And you put the keys, or in this case the money, is going to go just underneath the chair under there, so that she'd be blindfolded or have her eyes closed so she can't see the people coming. And then me and Ed are going to try to sneak up and get the key or key from underneath her chair without being spotted. Okay, so we're going to go and try and creep really quietly. So Ed's going to go first. He's going to creep really quietly, but he's quite noisy. So she spotted him and she points at him to show that she's spotted him. Okay. And that means that he's out and he has to go and sit back down again. Okay, so Edna was really good on that one. She actually heard the person coming, so we'll reset her and we'll try again. Woo! I've just lost her hair. Okay, so Edna did a good job on that one. So let's reset. There we go. Okay, so this time I'm going to go and see if I can sneak up and take the money without Edna noticing. Obviously, keys are better because they jingle, so it makes it harder to sneak. So I'm going to sneak up. Much quieter than Ed, as you can tell, and I'm going to crouch down and I'm going to take the keys from underneath, and I have just completed the activity and I've managed to take the money from underneath the chair without being spotted. Very good. Okay, so that's Keeper of the Keys. That is our next game. So think about what game mechanics might be involved in this one. What do you think? What game mechanics are involved? And let's go on to a new game. Okay, this game is called King Ball. This game, the idea is if you bounce the ball off the wall and then you hit somebody, then they're out. So the idea is that you have to bounce it. So if you don't bounce the ball, so in this game, you have to bounce the ball. So if you don't bounce it and you just like throw it in at them, then they aren't out. It has to bounce off the wall in order to be a hit. So if I just throw it in like that, I didn't actually hit anybody, it hits Ed, he wouldn't be out because I didn't actually bounce it off anything. But if, I'm going to use this pack of cards to illustrate, if I throw the ball and it bounces off the side, didn't catch anyone that time, like that, and it hits me, then I would be out. Okay, and you keep playing, the person trying to bounce the ball off the sides, you keep playing until everybody is out. Okay, you get the idea? That's King Ball. Again, have a little think about what game mechanics might be involved in that one. this one is another fun game that you can play. This one is ideal for a little group of people. So you probably want about 4 people really to play this game, ideally. And because of obvious reasons, I haven't got more people at home. So I had to think about something a little bit inventive of how I could play this game with you. So this is Doctor Doctor. The idea of Doctor Doctor is that you, is that you have to untangle everyone without breaking the chain, okay? So I had to think about how I could demonstrate this one to you, because normally you'd have groups of people, they all put their hands in the middle, and then each person has to hold the hands of 2 other people. So they can't hold the hands of the same person. They have to hold the hands of somebody else in the circle. So I thought probably the best way I could illustrate this was to use some bracelets. So I've actually created some friendship bracelets for this activity. You could do this, hopefully if you've got enough people at home, you could do this with people. It works much better. If you don't have people, then you could do something similar to me and actually use some bracelets and have a go at doing the activity and demonstrating it. So as I said earlier, each person holds the hands of 2 other people. So to illustrate this, I'm going to take one end of a friendship bracelet and I'm going to tie it to one of the other ones. So I'm going to tie it here. Now the idea is, as I said, that they have to hold the hands of 2 other people. So I've tied onto this sort of light beigey coloured friendship bracelet. So this end can't go to this one, it has to go to one of the others. And to make things more complicated, try to go like under and over so you're not actually laying them all in the same place. So I'm going to tie these 2 together as well. There we go. So tie them together there. Oops. I'm just going to try that again because it didn't quite go to plan. So I'm going to tie them together like that. There we go. Okay, so I've tied those 2 together. So there we go. And then I'm going to take this one and I'm going to tie it to the middle coloured brown one. There we go. Tie them over there. Okay, I'm going to take this one, and as I said earlier, I can't tie it to one that's already been tied to, and I'm going to tie it to this one here. Okay, once you've tied them all the ends together and you've followed the rules, followed the algorithm that says that you can't tie the same things together. Now it looks like it's probably quite knotted, but actually the idea of Doctor Doctor is that you can always undo the chain without breaking it. So you shouldn't need your people to let go of hands at all. You should be able to undo it just by going under and over like that. So you make the people go underneath the arms and you should be able to untie it like that without undoing any of the knots or letting go of any hands. Okay, so that's Doctor Doctor. Have a think about what game mechanics might be involved in Doctor Doctor. Okay. Next one we're going to play is another favourite. It's called the memory game. So this one is one that you can definitely have a go along with at home. So this one, the idea is that you have to try and memorise all the items in my inventory. So in my in the things I'm carrying in game. So I'm just going to lay my the bits and pieces out I'm going to use, and then I'll turn the visualizer on and I'll give you a 2-minute time limit to memorise as many of the items as possible. So let's lay out the last couple of bits. Okay. Just making sure that everything fits in. Okay, I think that's everything. Right, so I'm going to pop the visualizer on and I'm going to give you a 2-minute timer to memorise as many things as you can. Do not write them down at this moment. If you write them down, that's going to be cheating. So no writing them down at the moment. 2 minutes to memorise as many things as you can from my items. I'm just going to get my timer ready. Okay. Ready, set, go. Okay, 2 minutes and off. Can you memorise all the items? Had 30 seconds so far. And you've had your first minute now. 1 minute left. Memorise the items. .30 seconds left. Okay, 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, that is your time up. Grab your pen and paper and see how many of the items you can remember and list them. Okay, off you go. Write them down. What can you remember? I'm just going to give you a minute just to do that. So 1 minute to write down as many items as you can think of from the, I'm not going to say how many, the number of items that you were looking at on the page, on the visualizer a minute ago. Okay, so 1 minute, in fact, you're about 40 seconds left. Write them down. What can you remember? Okay, you've got about 20 seconds left. Make sure you can remember them all. Okay, and 10 seconds remaining. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so the items were, let's see if you can remember them. The items were the Play-Doh, a pair of scissors, a red pencil, a blue peg, a pack of tissues, some sellotape or some sticky tape, a Lego duck, and the alien from Toy Story. So hopefully you've identified all of those things. I'm going to do one more little activity, which is whether you can spot the extra items. So I'm going to just pop the transition slide on so you can't see what I'm doing, and I'm going to just change one of the items and see if you can spot the item that I've changed. Okay, there you go. Can you spot the item that I've just changed? Okay, did you spot that it was my little player? That was me. Yeah, so I swapped out the Lego duck for my little minifig. Okay, excellent. So that is another game. That's the memory game. Hopefully you can have managed to remember all the items in the inventory, and you might have managed to spot the item that I swapped over. So again, have a think about what game mechanics might have been involved in playing the memory game. Okay, so the next game is a game of musical chairs. Again, I've got slightly house rules on this, which is that when the music stops, you sit in a chair. That's the same as normal. But you can't find one or go, if you can't find one or you go backwards, then you're out. And you have to take a chair away each round. So the idea is that you start with one less chair than the number of people playing. I want you to imagine that at this stage, my characters have already been playing some rounds, so we've got right down to the very last part of the game, and we have only me and Edna left in this particular game. Okay, and there's my chair. Okay, so we're going to pop the music on like we did before, let's get the music going. You can play this at home if you want to. So, quick game of musical chairs, and this time we'd right down to the very last round, so there's only one chair left remaining, 2 people left in the game. As I said before, you have to go round in a particular direction, like that, and the idea is you can't go backwards. So if I got round to here and then the music stopped and I went backwards and tried to sit down in the chair, then I'd be out. Okay, so let's get the music going and play the very last round of musical chairs. Okay, off we go. There we are. Oh! So I get there and I win the game. Sorry, Edna, you're out and you lose. Okay, so there is a quick round of musical chairs. If you want to play yourself, obviously you can do. You can play probably a lot better than my minifigs can. Okay, so that was musical chairs. When the music stopped, the person who was closest to the chair wants to sit on it because then they'll win the game. If you can't find a chair or you've gone backwards, you're out and we have to take a chair away each round. So musical chairs, what mechanic is involved in musical chairs? Okay, next game, wink murder. If you're winked at, you need to die dramatically. And then the detective has to work out who the murderer is before everyone is dead. So the idea of this game is you will have one person who you identify as the detective. You send them out of the room so that they don't know what's going on. And then from the people remaining, you choose who is going to be the murderer. Okay, and they have to do some really good winking to tell the people when they need to die in the game. And then when the detective comes back in the room, the detective has to watch really carefully and see if they can spot the person that is the murderer before they've managed to wipe everyone out. Okay, so this one I can't play so easily for you on over the stream. This is one that you might need to do yourself or think about how to play. But we could do one very quick round and I'll wink and then you can all die and I win because I'm the murderer and I've beaten everybody. So quick one, wink, die dramatically. Excellent death scenes out there, well done. So that's wink murder. If you die if you're winked at, you have to die dramatically, and the detective has to work out who the murderer is before everyone is dead. Wink murder. Excellent. Okay, we're going to do one more game. This is the last of the games that we're going to play for illustrating different game mechanics, and this is Pictionary. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the drawings for you. I'm going to do a timer of a minute, and I'm going to see how many of my drawings you can identify in a minute. So you'll need a pen and paper if you haven't got one already. Grab yourself a pen and paper because you need to write down what you think my amazing drawings are as we go along. I'm going to set a minute so that I can so that you can try to identify what I am drawing. And then we'll be ready. So get your pen and paper at the ready. I'm going to set my timer and I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, now. Okay, so this is my first one, and okay. Okay, that's my first one. And my second one, I hope that you can tell what my drawings are. Okay, that's my second one. My third one is going to be there we go. My next one is going to be, oh, this one's quite hard. Okay, so we'll do that, and I'm going to do that. I'm cheating a bit by talking, to be honest. Oh, okay, and we've run out of time. That's my minute up. Okay, so let's see how many of my amazing drawings that you identified. So the first one, this one, was small rainbows. So you can see I've crossed out the big rainbow and you can just identify the small rainbows. This one was a plane. This one was shoes. And this one, which I didn't actually finish, was going to be a garden cane. So you see I've crossed out the house and identified the garden. I was about to draw some cane. So that was my drawing. So maybe you got all 4, maybe you got 3, so tot up what your score was. This game you play in teams, or you can play one at a time, and see if you can identify the most number of pictures and see who wins by the number of points that they get. If you want to do something similar to this, all I did, if you're interested, is I identified, I went onto the internet and I googled Pictionary cards, and I found a picture of some clues for Pictionary, and I just started to go through them. So if you enjoyed playing this game, you can do it yourself at home. Just if you haven't got Pictionary, just Google Pictionary cards and you get some examples that you can use at home. Okay, so we have done all of the games that we're going to play. So the next thing we need to do is to grab the worksheet, which is, I'm just grabbing it myself so you can see which one I'm identifying. There we go. There is the worksheet. This is the one that you're going to be filling in next. And you are going to be identifying the different game mechanics that were used in each of the games. So we've played 9 different games. We played 8. There was one game that we couldn't really play, which was Wink Murder, but hopefully you get the idea of how Wink Murder works. But we've played 9 different games, and there are 9 different game mechanics that we've been learning about in this workshop. So I'm going to pop the game mechanics on the screen for you, so you can use them to help you fill in the answers. Don't forget that if you haven't got this sheet, you can always just use pen and paper like we talked about before if you prefer. So it's absolutely fine, doesn't make any difference. Okay, so there are the different game mechanics. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to fill in what you think the answers are. And while you're doing that, I'm going to fill in the answers on my sheet as well. So let's have a look. So all you need to do, I'll just quickly illustrate in case you're not quite sure what to do with this, is for each game, identify which of the rules apply to it. So for the newspaper game, if I have a look at the different rules that are available, the one that it most fits with is can't touch the floor. Because when the music stops, you can't touch the floor. You have to be standing on a piece of newspaper. Okay, so that's how it works. So identify each of the different game mechanics that fit with each of the games. You should be able to find that you can allocate 1 game mechanic per game, so that all of the game mechanics have been put next to one of the games that we've played. Okay, off you go. So I'm just filling in my answer. Hopefully you're filling in yours too. Let's have a look. Next one. I'm sure your writing is a lot neater than mine. Let's have a look. There we go. And what else have we got left? I'm filling in the answers, by the way, in case you're wondering what I'm talking about. Oops. That one. And last one. Okay, I've identified all my items. You've got about 30 seconds left if you've not quite identified all of yours. So I'll give you 30 more seconds, and then we'll have a look at what the answers are and then see if you got them the same as mine. So you might find that some are slightly different if you can explain how that particular mechanic fits with the game. And there are definitely different ways of looking at this. So there's some examples where you could perhaps have chosen a different mechanic, but these are the ones that I went for. You've got 10 seconds left. Okay, right, so let's have a look at the answers. So first of all, can't touch the floor. When the music stops, you must be standing on a piece of paper or you're out, and take 1 piece of paper away per round. That was an example of can't touch the floor. Okay, so you can't touch the floor because when the music stops, At that point, you have to be standing on a piece of paper. The next one, which was musical statues, that one is can't do the same thing twice in a row. So if you remember from my example, I had a slight house rules on this one, which was that you have to strike a pose, and if you repeat the pose, then you're out. So you can't do the same thing twice in a row. Keeper of the keys is an example of must not be seen. You have to be stealthy and you have to creep and go and get the keys without being caught by the person who is the keeper. Obviously this was more to do with listening and actually hearing the person coming rather than being seen, but the same kind of idea, must not be seen. King ball was an example of bounce off the wall. You had to bounce the ball off the wall. If you hit somebody, then they're out, and you have to try and get everybody out by bouncing the ball off the wall. Hopefully you've identified that one. The next one is the Doctor Doctor game, which was you can only select connecting items, because if anyone lets go of their hands, then the game stops because you can't carry on. The idea is that everyone keeps hold of the person that they held the hands of in the first place, and you untangle everyone until you have a chain where there's no tangles in it at all, without breaking the chain. So can only select connecting items was Doctor Doctor. Limited inventory was the game where we had the memory game, where you had to remember all the items in my inventory, and then we also did a little extra where you had to see if you could spot the extra item that I'd swapped out. So that was an example of a limited inventory. Musical chairs, with again my slightly different house rule that maybe you don't play like this way, but when the music stops you have to sit in a chair. If you can't find one, or you go backwards to get to the chair, then you're out, was an example of the game mechanic can only move forwards. And wink murder was one life only, because if you're winked at, then you're dead in the game, so one life only. And finally, Pictionary was an example of limited time. So you hopefully were able to guess that that one was limited time because you only have a set amount of time to play the game and draw as many things as you can in a minute. So just to show you my worksheet. So we had newspaper game was can't touch the floor. King ball was bounce off walls. Musical chairs was can only move forwards. Musical statues was can't do the same thing twice in a row. Doctor Doctor was can only select connecting items. Wink murder was one life only. Keeper of the keys was must not be seen. Memory game was limited inventory, and Pictionary was limited time. If you wanted to, you could also say that memory game also was limited time as well, because you had a set amount of time to memorise the items before you had to then try and remember and list them all in the memory game. Okay. For the second activity, we're going to now think about the game mechanics that are needed to play your favourite computer game. And then we're going to complete the mind maps sheet. So this activity, you're going to need the other sheet, which I showed you at the beginning, but in case you've forgotten, it is this one, the sheet that has the game title box in the middle. As I said earlier, if you haven't got access to a printer, don't worry, you can just use a notepad and a pen. That's absolutely fine. If you're going to do the notepad and the pen, just sort of lay the sheet out in roughly the same way as I have, by giving you a box in the middle where you write the title of the game that you're going to identify the game mechanics for, and then you fill it in around the outside. Okay, so this is going to be our next activity. In the middle, write the title of a game that you enjoy playing on the computer, and then around the outside identify as many of the game mechanics as you can think of that are applied to the game that you are playing. So I'm going to give you a quick reminder of the game mechanics. There's actually a 10th one which isn't on this sheet, which was avoid enemies, which is the mechanic that we had as an example with the game of It, because you have to run away from the person who's it, and if you're caught by the person who's it, then you're out. So you have to avoid the enemy, who is the person who's it. So there are 10 different mechanics to identify in your game, or you might even want to spot a few different ones, because you might know the names of some other game mechanics. Please feel free to add them in if you do know some other ones. So you might, so these are the ones that you might want to identify again. Can't touch the floor, can't do the same thing twice in a row, must not be seen, bounce off walls, can only select connecting items, limited inventory, can only move forwards, one life only, limited time, and avoid enemies, which was the one that isn't on this sheet at the moment. So fill in your sheet. In the middle, pop the game title of the game that you like to play. So the thing I've been playing recently is Kingdom Hearts 3. And I'm going to do it like that. There you are, Kingdom Hearts 3. And around the outside, I'm going to put the game mechanics that I know that are in this game. So there are actually lots of different parts of this game. So there's a game in it where you go to 100 Acre Woods and you play a game where you have to throw vegetables, and if the vegetable that you've thrown matches like a row of other vegetables, then you get points. But they have to be connecting and they have to be the same kind of item. So I'm going to go for can only select connecting items for that particular part of the game. So you might find that there are actually different mechanics that are used in different places. I also know that you have to avoid enemies in some places. So I'm going to have that as another game mechanic. There are examples where you have a limited inventory. There we go, because there's only so many things that you can carry. And I think that will do. Oh, and one life only, because actually it doesn't completely kill you and send you back to the beginning. You carry on from where you died, but you don't have like multiple lives in Kingdom Hearts. So they are my game mechanics that I've identified. So hopefully you can think of another game that you enjoy playing and then fill out around the outside the different game mechanics that you have to use in that game to either play it, win it, or lose it. And if there are other game mechanics that we've not identified in the examples that we have been using in this workshop, then feel free to add some others. So for example, Kingdom Hearts is an example of a platformer, for example. Okay, so feel free to add some extra ones in there if you know some names of other types of game mechanic. And I'm going to give you a little bit of time to do this. So I'm going to pop a timer on for a couple of minutes for you to fill in the rules that fit with the game that you enjoy playing. Okay, off you go. If you're struggling to think of the game mechanics that apply to your game, you can always describe what happens in the game rather than actually writing down the name of the mechanic. That's absolutely fine. Got about 2 minutes left. Remember, there's one extra one that we haven't included on this particular slide, which is avoid enemies. So you might want to include that in your mechanics that you've identified from your game. You've got about 1 minute left. You might even want to draw what you think the mechanics look like. So if you're struggling to really get across what you're trying to say, a little picture goes a long way to describing what you're trying to illustrate. They say a picture paints 1,000 words, so feel free to do some little drawings if that helps you with identifying the mechanics that the game that you like uses. Maybe if you've already filled this in and you've got your ideas down on paper, maybe you'd like to pop into the chat what your favourite game is. So as I said, my favourite game is Kingdom Hearts 3. Please feel free to tell us what your favourite game is. We'd love to hear. Okay, 10 seconds left. Just finish off your worksheet. Okay, excellent. So you have identified, hopefully, some different game mechanics that are used in your game. So you've done quite a lot today. You've learnt about game mechanics, and we've learnt about 10 different game mechanics. So just to recap, they were avoid enemies, can't touch the floor, can't do the same thing twice in a row, must not be seen, bounce off walls, can only select connecting items, limited inventory, can only move forwards, one life only, and limited time. So you've learnt about those 10 game mechanics, and the next part of the workshop, because that's the end of today's workshop, the next part is going to be looking at actually putting some of what you've learned into action and actually making your own game. So you're going to be making a part-baked game called Run the Gauntlet, and you can see on your screen now an example of what that's going to look like. This game gets you to put into action the can only move forward mechanic and also the avoid enemies mechanic. So they're the two things that we're going to be particularly looking at next time. Okay, excellent. I hope that you've really enjoyed this. I'm actually going to jump over onto the chat now. So if you have got any questions, I'm just going to give 5 minutes to answering your questions now on the chat, and then we'll be closing up the workshop for today. I hope that you've really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed playing some games and talking to you about different game mechanics today. So feel free to drop your questions into the chat if you have any, and then we will be just finishing off our workshop for today. But feel free to join me on Friday if you want to learn how to make your own game using Construct 3. So, Mummy Jable just said that her favourite game is Just Dance. And excellent question. We're going to be making the game in Construct 3, which is an online game maker. You can run it completely in browser, a bit like Scratch does. It's called Construct 3. So if you want to have a little sneaky peek at it, you can Google it. I'll quickly show you on the screen now what that looks like if you want to. So I'll just pull up my Google. Okay, so if you do want to have a little sneaky peek at what we're going to be using to make the game next time, it's Construct 3. So just type into the search bar, Construct 3. And it's this very first link here, Construct 3 game making software. It's completely free. You don't need to pay anything for it. Go to try it now and then launch now. And it's there. They've actually got some different tutorials and worksheets and things that you can have a go at doing yourself. So as I said, it runs in browser, works best in Google Chrome. Feel free to have a go at that if you want to before Friday, but we'll be running through that on Friday. The other thing that we would be probably a good idea for you to do before we start that session next time is have the game file ready, which the link for that is included in the Eventbrite. But if you want to just have a quick be ready for that next time, if you go to Part-Baked Games, and then go to the Access All Files Here section where it says Part-Baked Games Files. If you click on that, it'll take you to one of Digital Schoolhouse's Google Drives. And if you go to Part-Baked Game Files, open that folder up, you'll find there is a file for Run the Gauntlet Part-Baked. That's the one that we're going to be using. So I would suggest that you download that so you've got that ready for next time as well. So just to recap, if you're joining us next time for making the game using some of the game mechanics that we've talked about today, it's go to the Digital Schoolhouse website, which is digitalschoolhouse.org.uk. Getting a bit excited, sorry. Then you want to go to the resources section, scroll down to our workshops, go to workshop resources. It's in the algorithms and programming section. You need to go to the second page, So scroll down to the bottom and click on page 2. Find Part Bait Games. There it is there. And go to the Part Bait Games files, because you're going to need the file that contains the pictures, like the assets that you need for the game. So that's like the pictures and the characters that are there in the game ready for you. So if you open up Part Bait game files, and the one that you want to download is Run the Gauntlet Part Bait, that one just there. So make sure you've got that ready for next time. Okay, so I think we've spent a bit of time, and unfortunately we are out of time now. If anyone's got any last minute questions they want to just pop into the chat, then feel free to do that now. I'm just going to start to sign off now. I hope that you've enjoyed today's workshop as much as I have, and you've learned a little bit about different game mechanics, perhaps if you didn't know about those previously. So thank you for taking part. I hope you've had fun and learnt something new. If you've enjoyed this workshop, check out our YouTube channel for more follow-along activities. If you have any questions or feedback for me, please email dsh@ukie.org.uk. Now, we'd love to see you learning computing at home with Digital Schoolhouse. Parents and guardians, please feel free to share any images or videos using the hashtag #ComputingAtHome on Twitter or on Facebook. Also, for those of you who love writing, Digital Schoolhouse have launched a creative writing competition, which you can find more about on our website. If you're a teacher and you're interested in joining the programme, applications are currently open for new lead teachers, or maybe you're a parent of a primary age pupil and are interested in finding out how Digital Schoolhouse can work with your child's school. To find out more about the Digital Schoolhouse programme, or to take part in that creative writing competition, check out our website, which is digitalschoolhouse.org.uk. You can find our contact information in the section below or at the end of this video. Lastly, I wanted to say a huge well done for taking part today. I'm Estelle, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Goodbye.